There's a moment you probably know. It's not when the thought shows up. It's not when you start explaining it to yourself, listing, analyzing, trying to figure it out. It's before that. It's when your body already knows, when something tightens in the center of your chest before you have words for it. When your breathing shifts on its own, no warning, no clear reason. When your shoulders lift just a little, maybe an inch, and stay there. Like they're waiting for something that never actually comes. You felt that, maybe today, maybe yesterday morning, before you even picked up your phone. Maybe in the middle of the night, waking up for no reason, heart moving faster than it should for someone who is asleep. Stay with me. This doesn't start with a thought. It starts where anxiety really begins, in the body. And by the end, it'll make sense in a way you don't just understand, you'll feel it. I need to tell you something before we go further. This is slow, on purpose. There's no list, no quick fixes, no 3-minute summary. What we're doing here takes time. It takes quiet. It takes staying with something a little longer than you normally would. If something tightens while you're listening, don't skip ahead. Stay there. That pressure, that's where things start to shift. We're going to follow someone ordinary, an ordinary life. No dramatic diagnosis, no big cinematic trauma. Just a life and a body that, at some point, started reacting before it was asked to. His name is William, he's 34, works in customer support at a mid-sized company, gets up at 7, sometimes 6:45, because his body decides the night is over before the alarm does. He has a small apartment he actually likes, a routine that mostly works, a girlfriend he spends weekends with. William doesn't think he has anxiety. He thinks he's just a little tense, just wired that way. Isn't everyone? But if you could watch him in the morning before coffee, you'd notice something. He wakes up and lies there for a few seconds, not because he's lazy, because his body feels heavy in a strange way, like it's been working all night. He blinks, looks at the ceiling, and before he even remembers what he has to do today, his chest is already slightly tight. He doesn't notice. It's been like this so long, it doesn't register anymore. He gets up, brushes his teeth, stares into the mirror, but not really at himself. His jaw is tight, right side of his neck stiff. When he turns his head, there's a small crack. It's been like that for months. He thinks it's posture, maybe the pillow. The shower runs hot. For about 30 seconds, just 30, he stands there and something in his body wants to stay, but his mind is already ahead of him. The 10 o'clock meeting, the email he needs to answer, that conversation with his boss yesterday that felt off. He can't name it, but it's there like a small stone in his shoe. He turns the water off before he actually wants to. He gets to work at 8:40, sits down, the screen lights up, and then something happens every single day that he's never once noticed. Before he opens the first email, he holds his breath, just a little, just enough for his chest to tighten. But that's enough. His diaphragm locks, his shoulders rise, his fingers land on the keyboard with more pressure than they need. He opens the email, it's nothing, a system update, but his body was already braced and now it's stuck there. Like a car with the engine running inside a closed garage, heat, noise, nowhere to go. The day moves on. He answers emails. In a meeting, someone asks him a question, clearly meant for him. His face heats up before he speaks. His answer is solid, his voice steady. But in the 2 seconds before he talks, a wave moves from his stomach to his throat. He's never named it. He just calls it blanking for a second. He always has. Later his girlfriend texts, wants to grab dinner, simple question, no pressure. But he stares at it longer than he needs to. It's not that he can't decide, it's that he can't feel what he wants. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The feeling slips away before it becomes a word. He types, whatever you want, and there's a faint dissatisfaction in his chest that he won't examine, because there's no real reason for it. At night, the moment he both waits for and avoids, Silence. He sits on the couch after dinner. The TV is on, but he's not watching. It's just there, because when the silence gets too complete, something in his body starts to stir. A vague discomfort, restlessness without an object. He picks up his phone, scrolls for 20 minutes, doesn't really absorb anything, but his body feels slightly distracted, just enough. Enough not to sit with that unnamed discomfort that shows up when it's quiet. At 11, he goes to bed, closes his eyes. His body doesn't shut down. The thoughts aren't dramatic, no catastrophe, just fragments. Tomorrow's meeting, a bill he needs to pay, that strange tone in his boss's voice. His body is lying down, but still slightly braced. His legs twitch sometimes, like they want to run, his jaw again. He turns to the other side, adjusts the pillow, tries a deeper breath. It works for about 30 seconds. Then the cycle starts again. Let me ask you something, and your body might answer before your mind does. Does any of this feel familiar? It doesn't have to be exactly like William. But is there something in your day that happens before you think about it? A tightening, a flush, a stiffness. Something you've learned to ignore because it's been there so long it no longer feels like a signal. If there is, stay. That's exactly where we're going. What William doesn't know is this. His body isn't broken. What's happening isn't random. It's a system, built over years, brick by brick, designed to keep him safe. The problem isn't that the system exists. The problem is that it doesn't know the threat is over. For now, just stay with him. Stay with his body in the morning, with the jaw, the lifted shoulders, the breath he holds before opening an email. That's where this begins. William wakes up on Thursday with something already there. Not a clear thought, not a sentence, more like the texture of a thought. A quiet sense that today is going to feel heavy. He doesn't know why. There's nothing unusual on his calendar, no confrontation, no deadline on fire. But his body already knows something. He lies there a little longer than usual, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The light slipping through the curtains is still soft. The apartment is quiet. His girlfriend is still asleep. And in that early morning silence, the part of the day that's supposed to be the calmest, something in him never really powered down. His chest feels slightly heavy, not pain. Something more spread out than that, like his lungs are working inside a space just a little too small. He takes one deep breath on purpose. Air in, chest expands. For a second, there's relief, just a second. Then the tightness returns. He gets up, feet on the cold floor, walks to the kitchen, starts the kettle. While he waits, he leans against the counter and stares at nothing in particular. If you asked him how he feels, he'd say, normal, because this is the state he knows. But normal doesn't mean healthy. It means familiar, and familiar doesn't mean it's free. The water boils. He makes coffee. The smell is good. For a real moment, a present one, he's there. The warm mug in his hands, steam rising. The small kitchen filled with that smell. His body eases. Then his phone lights up on the table. Work notification, 7:12 a.m. Just a status update, not urgent, doesn't even need a reply. But his body doesn't know that. It sees the light, and something activates. A readiness, a contraction, a slight acceleration that starts in his stomach and climbs. The coffee is still warm in his hands, but the moment is gone. He flips the phone face down. Too late. There's something about William he's never labeled as anxiety, because it doesn't look like anxiety the way he thinks it's supposed to look. He doesn't have panic attacks. He's not afraid of flying. He's not visibly restless. What he has is quieter. It's the way his jaw tightens in meetings, the way his right shoulder sits slightly higher than the left, and he only notices if someone points it out. The fraction of a second he holds his breath before answering almost anything. Not because he's thinking, because his body is bracing. It's the fact that he can't sit still for more than 3 minutes without reaching for something. His phone, the TV, a small task, anything to give his system something to aim at. That doesn't look like anxiety. It looks like personality, and that's why it lasts. On Friday, he finally has a conversation with his boss he's been putting off for a week. It's not supposed to be hard. Just a project update, 5 minutes, maybe 10. His boss is reasonable. The company's stable. He's doing well. But the second he knocks on the door and hears, "Come in," something shifts inside him that doesn't match the situation. His heart speeds up. Heat rises from his chest to his neck. His hands get slightly damp. When he starts talking, his voice comes out a little higher than he meant it to, a little lighter, almost forced. He hears it, can't stop it. The conversation goes fine. His boss agrees. 5 minutes, like expected. William walks to the bathroom, closes the door, faces the mirror, breathes. And then comes that drop, the release. His shoulders lower, his breathing widens, his body lets go of tension it had saved for a battle that never happened. He looks at his reflection, and for a split second, there's a question, too fast to fully form. Why is it always like this? He doesn't stay with it, dries his hands, goes back to his desk. On the weekend, he and his girlfriend go to the grocery store. Simple errand. They're walking down an aisle when she makes a comment about something he did earlier in the week. Not a criticism, just an observation. Her voice is calm. She's not upset, but his body reacts before his mind can process the words. Immediate tightening in his stomach. Breathing shifts, shallower, quicker. Shoulders rise. 2 seconds ago he was choosing yogurt. Now he's somewhere else entirely. He answers in a tone he didn't plan to use, more defensive than he wants. He knows it while it's happening, but the signal already went out. The words followed it. She goes quiet for a moment. They keep walking. The subject changes. Nothing is resolved. It's just covered. And that small stone he carries in his chest grows a little heavier, without him being able to explain why a simple comment in a grocery aisle should do that. Pause for a second. Not about William, about you. When was the last time your body reacted before you had time to think? A message that landed wrong, a tone of voice, walking into a room and sensing something's off before you have proof. The body knows things. The question is, what did it learn to know? What's happening to William has a name, not a clinical one, a human one. His body is in constant listening mode, not relaxed listening. Vigilant listening, the kind trained to catch danger before danger fully appears. An alarm that was calibrated during a time when it made sense to be sensitive. But the environment changed. No one told the alarm, so it keeps ringing. Not loud, not dramatic, just constant, like background noise you learn to ignore, even though it's always there, using energy, keeping everything slightly braced. William isn't broken. The alarm isn't a flaw. At some point in his life, maybe during instability, maybe in unpredictability, his system learned that it was safer to always be ready than to be caught off guard. That was smart. At the time, it probably worked. The problem isn't that the alarm exists. The problem is that it doesn't know the season that created it is over. There's a specific Tuesday night I want you to see. He's lying in bed. His girlfriend already asleep. The apartment is quiet. The kind of quiet that would feel peaceful during the day, but at night feels different when your body doesn't know how to land. He closes his eyes, and it begins. Not big thoughts, fragments. Tomorrow's meeting. A sentence he said 3 days ago that could have come out better. A bill, that unresolved tension with his girlfriend. Nothing urgent. Nothing catastrophic, but each fragment triggers something small, a tightening here, a flush there, a breath that never quite drops all the way down. He turns to the other side, tries not to think, which never works. Don't think about the meeting, just makes the meeting louder. He tries breathing slower. It works for 40 seconds, then the system resets. 1 dozens a.m., 1:30. At some point, his body gives in. Not because it feels safe, because it's exhausted. He falls asleep in a way that drains instead of restores. He wakes up at 6:40, heavy, stares at the ceiling, and the week starts again. This cycle isn't weakness. It isn't drama. It's a system built over a long time by a part of you that was trying to make sure you were never caught off guard. That part has good intentions, but it comes with a cost. We're going to talk about that part, who it is, where it came from, and what it's so afraid would happen if it lowered its guard, even for a moment. Because when you finally know its name, something shifts. Not overnight, not in some dramatic, cinematic way, but quietly. And quiet change is the only kind that lasts. There's a part of William he's never introduced to anyone. Not to his girlfriend, not to his friends, not even to himself, not really. It operates in the background of his life, not as a villain, not as weakness, as a strategy. An old one, something that at one point was the only thing that worked. It doesn't have a face, it doesn't speak in clear sentences, but it has presence. You feel it when he holds his breath before opening an email. When he says, whatever you want, because he can't access what he actually wants. When he leaves the bathroom after talking to his boss and buries the question that almost became a thought. This part has one job. It monitors. It scans the room for signals. Tone of voice, facial expression, the silence after a sentence, the delay before someone texts back. It processes all of that faster than his conscious mind ever could, and it delivers a verdict to his body before he has time to think. Danger. Get ready. Maybe danger. Stay ready. Not sure. Stay ready anyway. The verdict is almost never, you're safe, you can relax. Because to this part, relaxing doesn't mean rest. It means risk. To understand where this part came from, we have to go back. Not to some dramatic trauma, to something much more ordinary. And because it's ordinary, it's harder to name. William grew up in a house that functioned. There was food, school, structure. But there was something in the air that taught him, quietly and consistently. The moods around him were unpredictable, not violent, not cruel, just unpredictable. His dad might come home calm or closed off, no warning. His mom might be present one day, distant the next, in a way that didn't have a label but landed in his stomach all the same. And child William learned the way children learn, not through lectures, through repetition. It was smartest to monitor. Walk into the house and feel the room before speaking. Read the face before asking for something. Adjust your tone before sharing your day. That wasn't trauma. It was adaptation. A smart kid developing sharp social radar. In many settings, that skill is useful. The problem is, the system never learned how to power down. Adult William inherited that radar. But the context changed. His dad isn't in the picture. His boss is predictable. His girlfriend is safe. But his internal system doesn't update that easily. It runs on older data. It runs on body memory. Not the kind you can tell as a story, the kind stored in shoulders that rise at a raised voice, in a stomach that tightens when someone goes quiet after a question, in the breath that stops when a notification lights up at 7 a.m. The system generalized. Authority figures are unpredictable. Silence might mean a storm. Relaxing before you're certain is dangerous. And now it applies that logic everywhere, to the reasonable boss, the steady girlfriend, the harmless email, the quiet night that holds no threat at all. It's protecting him from something that no longer exists in the same way, but it doesn't know that. This part has a name. We'll call it the Watcher. The Watcher isn't the enemy. It never was. It stood guard when someone needed to stand guard. It helped a young boy not get blindsided. It learned how to read a room before entering it. It knew when it was safer to stay quiet. At one point, the Watcher was a hero. The problem is, heroes who never get told the war is over keep fighting. The Watcher burns through William's energy, scanning a world that doesn't require that level of scanning anymore. It keeps his body slightly braced, which means sleep isn't real sleep. Silence isn't real silence. When the shadow has a name, it loses a little power. Not instantly. It doesn't disappear. But something shifts when you can look at it and say, I know who you are, I know what you're doing, and I know why you learned to do it. Now here's the trap. Most people discover the alarm and immediately try to shut it down by force. They try to reason with it. There's no danger. It's just a meeting. Calm down. They breathe until the alarm stops, or try to. But this system doesn't run on logic. It runs on survival. Older, faster, not impressed by arguments. William has tried this. You probably have too. Your heart was racing before a conversation, and you told yourself, "It's fine, it's nothing." Your heart didn't slow down. You relaxed your jaw on purpose. It held for 40 seconds, then tightened again. You tried to convince your body everything was okay while it insisted it wasn't. And now you're not just anxious. You're anxious and frustrated at yourself for being anxious because the alarm didn't turn off. It got louder. When you confront the alarm, it reads that as another threat. The watcher doesn't know how to suppress. It only knows how to monitor and alert. So it starts alerting you about the fact that you're alert. And the cycle tightens. Picture this. A child scared in the dark, crying out. Someone walks in and snaps, "Stop crying, there's nothing there." The child doesn't calm down. They cry harder, because now there's the dark and an angry voice. What calms the child isn't the argument that nothing's in the dark. It's someone sitting beside them, not denying the fear, saying, "I know it feels scary. I'm here." William's body needs that. Your body might need that. Not convincing, not suppression. Presence. You sitting next to the alarm instead of fighting it. Just, "I know you're here. I know why you learned this. Thank you." But we're going to try something different now. If the watcher is the shadow, there's another part in William that never got much room to grow. A part that knows how to land, that can be in a conversation without scanning the other person's face every 3 seconds. That can feel what it wants and say it, without first asking, "Is it safe to want this?" That can actually sleep, because it knows in the body that constant vigilance isn't required. That part exists in William. It exists in you. It's just been sidelined, like a muscle that hasn't been used in years, still there, but it needs careful attention to come back online. We'll call this part the grounded one. The grounded one isn't perfect. Sometimes it speaks before overthinking, not from anxiety but from presence, which has its own messiness. Sometimes it misses subtle signals because it isn't constantly scanning. Sometimes it walks into a hard conversation without armor and feels more than it expected, but it sleeps, it breathes. It knows what it wants for dinner. It can hear a comment in a grocery aisle without its stomach collapsing, not because it feels nothing, but because feeling doesn't automatically become an alarm. It becomes information. It becomes a conversation, something that can be processed, not suppressed or exploded. This is the part William is going to strengthen, not to eliminate the watcher, not to destroy the alarm, but to create space, at first a small space, between signal and response, between contraction and action. That small space is where everything changes. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. Can you recognize your watcher? It doesn't have to look exactly like William's, but is there a part of you that's always scanning, always slightly braced, burning energy in the background, making silence feel less silent than it should? If you can sense even a hint of it, that's the first move. You can't work with something you refuse to see. So this is where it actually matters, not the part where you understand it. William understands a lot already. You probably do too. Understanding is the beginning, but understanding without moving the body is just a good story that never leaves your head. What we're doing now is different. We're going to train, not in a heroic way, not with rigid discipline, small repetition, consistent, honest. The watcher wasn't built in a day. It was built over years of quiet repetition. And the grounded one won't grow in a weekend. It grows the same way the watcher did, one day at a time, one situation at a time, one moment at a time, 30 days, not to cure anything, not to erase anxiety, just to begin creating that small space between the alarm and the response. To give the body a new experience, repeated enough times that it starts to feel familiar. Small is what changes everything. The first movement is called lowering the volume, not shutting the alarm off, not fighting it, just lowering it slightly for a few seconds, enough for the body to receive different information than it's used to. When the alarm goes off, when the chest tightens, when the shoulders rise, when the breath catches, William does one thing. He places a hand in the center of his chest, feels the weight of his own hand, takes one slow breath in through his nose, lets it out through his mouth. No rush. It doesn't dissolve the alarm. But it sends a message the system rarely gets. There is someone here who isn't panicking. There is a hand that didn't run. Every morning before he opens his phone, he does this. 30 seconds, hand on chest, one slow breath, and one quiet question. How is my body right now? Not what do I have to do, not what am I worried about, just how is my body right now? Sometimes the answer is heavy, sometimes tight, sometimes lighter than he expected. The answer isn't the point. The asking is. The watcher was never asked how it was doing. It was just activated. Being asked, even silently, even by you, is a kind of presence the system doesn't know well. The second movement is mapping the route. Once a day, not every hard moment, just once, William sits for 5 minutes with something that triggered the alarm, not to solve it, not to fully understand it, just to locate it. Where does the conversation with his boss live in the body, in the stomach, in the forced lightness of his voice? Where does the grocery store comment live, in the sudden tightening, in the lifted shoulders? Where does the quiet night live, in the chest that won't settle, in the jaw that won't soften? Mapping isn't analyzing, it's locating, it's saying, it's here. When you locate experience in the body instead of letting it turn into abstract thought, the system receives a signal. Someone is paying attention, not running, not suppressing, paying attention. Systems that are seen, not judged, just seen, slowly learn. They don't have to scream to be heard. William writes it down. 3 simple lines. 1 situation. Before the meeting, tight stomach, raised shoulders, breath stuck halfway. When she spoke, immediate contraction, heat in face, voice sharper than I meant. Tonight alone, heavy chest, restless legs, thoughts looping about nothing urgent. It's not journaling. It's teaching the system that it can be noticed without being attacked. The third movement is acting as the grounded one. This is the one the watcher resists the most, because the grounded one moves differently. It doesn't scan every face before speaking. It doesn't calibrate tone before expressing a want. It doesn't default to whatever you want. William starts small, very small. Next time his girlfriend asks what he wants for dinner, he answers honestly. Not what he thinks will keep things smooth, not what avoids friction, what he actually wants, even if it's simple. Even if it leads to negotiation. That sounds tiny, but to his system, stating a preference without first scanning for danger is radical. It's a muscle contracting for the first time in years. It will feel strange. The watcher will get loud. It will say this is risky, that the old way was safer. William doesn't fight it. He says internally, the way you'd speak to a child who's been standing guard too long. I know, you're trying to protect me. Thank you, but today I'm going to try something different. And he does. By day 10, the hand on his chest won't feel as foreign. By day 15, he'll sit with discomfort a little longer without reaching for his phone. By day 20, he'll notice in the middle of a conversation that his shoulders are lower than usual, that his voice sounds more like him. It won't be every day. Some days the watcher will be louder. Some days the cycle will come back fully. Sleep will disappear again. The jaw will tighten again. Those days aren't failure. They're part of training. Systems don't change in straight lines. They change in spirals. Forward, back. Forward a little farther. Back a little less. And every setback met with presence instead of judgment teaches the system something new. Mistakes are not the same as danger. At the beginning of this story, William woke up heavy every morning and thought it was normal, thought it was just how he was, thought everyone felt this way. Maybe you've thought something similar. Maybe there's a tension you've carried so long you stopped calling it tension and started calling it personality. Maybe there's an alarm that's been ringing for years and you don't even hear it anymore. You just feel the exhaustion of always being slightly ready for something that never arrives. You're not broken. This was learned. At some point it made sense. At some point it was the smartest move your system could make to keep you safe. And now that you know the name of the Watcher, now that you know the Grounded One exists, now that you have 3 movements that begin in the body before thought, you have something William didn't have at the start. You have the possibility of choosing differently. Not always, not immediately, not without noise at first. But the possibility is here. When a shadow has a name, it loses some of its power. This is revealed shadows. We don't make easy promises here. We sit with what's difficult and stay long enough for something real to shift. If any part of this touched something in you, if you recognized your Watcher, if you felt that familiar contraction while listening, if there's a question in you that isn't fully answered yet, that's already a beginning. You don't have to have it all figured out to take the next step. You just have to take the next step.